Society's family unit is in crisis as less and less people are making the commitment of a lifelong partnership together. It has been normalized, encouraged, and easier than ever to just throw in the towel when the going gets tough. With time at a premium, start by spending 20 minutes per week gaining thought-provoking inspiration towards a journey of self-improvement, ultimately improving your marriage, your family, your health, and your home.
Go for it.
All relationships have conflict. This cannot be avoided or negotiated with. Managing conflict is vital in predicting success with conflict. This is our third part of our 4-part series on the 4 Horsemen from John Gottman, and today we are going to talk about defensiveness. We will discuss what defensiveness means and what the antidote is for your relationship.
Welcome back to another episode of The Family Order. Just to kind of recap, John Gottman is a famous psychologist and professor who has worked for over 4 decades on divorce prediction and marital stability. So identifying the 4 horsemen helps with managing conflict in relationships. So the goal is to replace these 4 horsemen with positive and productive habits of communication. So the 4 horsemen are actually a metaphor depicting the end times in the New Testament. If you're familiar with biblical terms, conquest, war, hunger, and death. So the 4 horsemen here are used to define communication styles.
Right.
So these 4 styles can actually predict the end of a relationship, which is why we find him so not entertaining, I guess. Intriguing. Yes. Entertaining. So we've already done the first 2, criticism and contempt. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about defensiveness before we go into the 4th one, which is stonewalling.
Right. And remember that, just a quick reminder for folks out there that haven't gone back and listened to our earlier episodes, shame on you. But marriage is one of our 4 pillars, and we define marriage as a pillar in the way that we are looking to elevate one another to flourish as life partners. So that's not to be PC about it. That's actually what we really think.
We really do think we're going to be life partners. And
Right.
Not just until things don't work out.
Yeah. For now.
Yeah, it works for now. Might
so
upgrade later.
Yeah, just throw this away when I get tired of it. So the 3rd horseman is defensiveness, and typically it's a response to criticism, one of the earlier horsemen we discussed. And when you've been defensive, we all have been. So we've all done this at different times when we feel attacked, and it's rampant in relationships that are on the rocks because more often than not, you're more focused on being right than actually resolving a conflict. So you may feel unjustly accused, especially when emotions are involved, or you're stressed, or you're tired. And we all tend to start fishing for excuses and playing the innocent victim that didn't do anything wrong, and that'll get people to back off.
Mentality.
All right, another episode we've done. And it's a theme, you sort of notice the reoccurring theme, and it's to get the focus off of your issues and on somebody else, typically.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this strategy is almost never successful.
It's pretty much not. And not over the long term, it's not. Short term, I think it can be successful sometimes.
Basically, our excuses tell our partner that we don't take their concerns seriously and that we won't take responsibility for our mistakes. So, for example, did you call Jack and Sarah to let them know that we're not coming tonight like you promised this morning?
By the way, we don't really know a Jack and Sarah. We just pulled that out of thin air. But a defensive response would be, well, I was just too darn busy today. As a matter of fact, you know how busy my schedule is. Why didn't you just do it? Does anybody spot the defensiveness in that statement?
Yeah, this partner not only responds defensively, but they actually end up reversing the blame in an attempt to make it the other partner's fault.
Right.
So instead, a non-defensive response would express acceptance of responsibility, admission of fault, and understanding of your partner's perspective.
Right. And to clarify, we don't want people to think that means you just start accepting the blame in every situation and become a doormat.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
so
another thing.
that's a
whole nother
different, that's a
episode.
whole different thing. But a good response, a more appropriate response would be something along the lines of, you know, oops, I forgot.
Oops.
Sorry.
Can you say oops?
Oops. Whoops. Oops or whoops.
I
What do you like
I
better?
don't think you've ever said oops.
I don't like the word oops. So I don't say it.
Oops. I did it again.
So anyways,
Sorry.
moving forward, we'll be here all night.
This is a serious episode.
But the words "I'm sorry" could probably
Yeah.
be a part of the sentence. And most people throw that around a lot, but I think that's an important thing to say. Just, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot. I should have asked you this morning. I knew my day would be packed. That's part of planning ahead.
Another episode.
We're so self-serving. It's just ridiculous. We're just plugging our own episodes. That's where we are now. But you could say, that's my fault. Let me call them right now. So not only are you fixing the problem, you're getting right on it, but you've also admitted your part of the blame. You didn't say anything about your partner. You didn't say you know, there's nothing to do with them. You took responsibility and ownership of it without self-degradation, you know. So the self-deprecation and stuff, that can get real old pretty fast. And I see a lot of guys do this. You go out there and you self-deprecate because you think it gives you some sympathy points or that it'll bring people into your confidence and they'll like you and they may have a laugh. It works for a short while. Pretty soon that gets old. It gets old real fast. People don't respect you because you don't seem to respect yourself. So,
well, and I mean, it's perfectly understandable to defend yourself when you
should.
are stressed out and you're feeling like you're attacked. But this approach will not have the desired
and
effect.
not attacking somebody is another issue altogether as well. So I think you want to make sure you don't, you know, we want to make sure you don't just like think that it's okay to attack people, because then, you know, you don't want them to get defensive. But that's on you too, is not to put the other person on the defensive.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what you just talked about because I was distracted by you hitting the microphone.
Well, now that everybody knows,
I know,
make it a thing.
Sorry. So
could have smoothly moved along.
We haven't recorded in a couple of weeks. We're a little out of whack. We just want to be very real with people.
Yeah. So to get us back on track, so when you feel attacked and you get defensive, just remember this won't have the effect you want. It won't have the result that you want. In fact, it usually leads to no results, because how many times have you all had the dumbest fight in the history of the universe that you can't remember what it was originally about, and it totally changed to this emotionally charged fight where you just started blaming each other and attacking each other, and then other stuff came up because, you know what, I'm pissed now, so I'm just going to bring everything up.
Well, even in putting together examples for this episode and stuff, I was like trying to think like, okay, what's like a real life situation where I used like a defensive, you know, response, and I couldn't even think of one. Number one, I have a terrible memory. Number two, it's probably because it was stupid.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
It was probably a stupid fight that it was probably really my fault.
It's kind of like drunken recall. Like if you get like really emotionally charged and stressed out, you tend to remember stuff that happened when you were stressed out before. But the other problem is when somebody doesn't ever acknowledge these things and doesn't fix them, and then they come back. And anyways, what was I saying? So really, defensiveness, again, the bottom line is it's all about blaming the other person, and the escalation of the conflict, it doesn't lead to anything getting accomplished. That's the big thing we want to underline. So it doesn't allow for any resolving or managing of the conflict itself. So, anyways,
Yeah.
um, so really, I mean, defensiveness is is really, it's an issue. It's not probably the biggest issue in a marriage. And if you've been defensive, don't have a fire drill thinking that, oh my gosh, our marriage is doomed and it's all bad. But if a problem's not resolved over time, that will build
Mhm.
resentment. It will make things worse. And the antidote is to accept responsibility, but you need to do it in a healthy way. Don't accept responsibility for everything.
Yeah.
That's taken a little bit too far. And then you've turned yourself into a doormat, and then you're not going to get your voice heard, your needs fulfilled either. And nobody's going to be happy when that starts happening. So, but offering an apology is another thing that we think is very important. Some people aren't very good at it, um, but especially when they're mad.
Like we've
Um,
said before, we're not perfect.
no, we are not. And but honestly, everybody has problems with this. I think
Mhm.
I can't think of a single person that I've known for very long that hasn't been defensive about something.
Yeah. I think this next example is probably good because I feel like we're always running late, especially with two children.
We're not running
Can we
late. Our
can we
kids are
blame
running
our
late. It's our
kids?
kids' fault.
It's
It's,
our
it's
kids' fault.
totally their fault.
So an example of defensiveness. It's not my fault we're going to be late. It's your fault because you always get dressed at the last second.
We're both guilty of that, honestly.
Yeah.
We're pretty bad
We
about
get our
that.
kids ready first. And
Yeah,
then
we're
we
always
worry
the
about
last to
ourselves.
get ready. Like, oh, I guess I better do something with
Yeah.
this hot mess.
Whereas the antidote would be that I would say, I really don't like being late, but you're right. We don't always have to leave so early. I can be a little bit more flexible, which I don't know if that word's in my vocabulary. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
I'm
think
flexible.
the other thing is to be proactive too. Like if you know these problems always seem to happen, you need to just go ahead and get ready earlier and try to figure out, like, do something different or you're going to get the same results.
Yeah. So taking responsibility for part of the conflict. So trying to leave too early. So even while asserting that I don't like to be late,
For sure.
you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we prevent the conflict from escalating and admitting my role in the conflict. So
well, I think it's disarming. I think if you think of our personal past, I think that that's the thing when you go on the attack and the defensive, and then you're not listening to each other, and then you're just trying to like load up for your next,
Yeah.
shots that you're going to fire. And so now, it's really important to remember that you're in this together. Like, try to remember your team. And it's very disarming when somebody admits fault over something, and not in a sarcastic way. I mean, actually admits specifically what they think they did, what they can do better. What else are you going to say to them at that point? Are you going to kick them while they're down? No, you're going to be like, no, okay, yeah, I was wrong too. Sorry. It got the better of me. I could do this better. I could do that better too. So yeah, let's work on it. That it's very disarming. It really just takes the conflict right out of it. So
yeah, I mean, so obviously it's like we said, it's natural to want to defend yourself when you're feeling attacked. And so like you said, being defensive is different in relationships. So you want to be assertive versus being passive.
Right.
So a good book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I haven't read it, but so
probably should.
Yes. So focus on the major problem and a solution while admitting your part or your share of the responsibility. So being defensive will happen in long-term relationships. So making sure that you don't overreact. If you or your partner gets defensive at times. So with practice, you can quickly recognize and recover from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being emotional is the biggest part of being defensive. It's an emotional response. You go on the defense when you feel attacked. And many times, especially in your long-term relationship, your marriage, it can really stem from unresolved issues that are building up resentment and sometimes under the surface, which is really dangerous. So when you get to that contempt level, which was the horseman we just talked about, that's what can happen, especially when someone feels like they're not being heard, they're not being respected, or that things aren't being resolved, and they've just gone over it so many times. They're just like, I don't even know what else to say here, and they start lashing out. Just throwing barbs, just spewing venom to be hurtful sometimes, which is not what anybody wants to do. But emotions are a huge part of that. And I think when emotions take over, the brain shuts down, and that's not how we want to deal with things. But try to remove the emotions, try to stay calm, and be sure to remind yourself and maybe even your partner about the good in each other and the good intentions. Don't always assume ill will. Try to assume the best of each other. That will certainly help in times of stress.
Yeah. So this week's call to order, think about the last argument that you had in your relationship. Try to identify when you were defensive and recognize what happened in that discussion. What made you defensive and what was the outcome? Think about what you would say differently and practice being less defensive and more solution oriented. If you're ready for your marriage and family dynamic to thrive and not just survive, all it takes is 20 minutes or less joining us each week. It begins with a journey of self-improvement while you sit in the carpool lane, commute to work, squeeze in a workout, or get halfway through folding that laundry pile. Be sure to check out the blog at thefamilyorder.com and follow us on social media at The Family Order. If you're ready to start your journey, be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every Monday.